No, I haven't done anything this big because at my school, I went to school here locally. We didn't really have any opportunities to do anything this big. So this is the first time I'm actually able to, we actually get funding and we have backing and we have people rooting for us instead of just having a teacher assign us something. So this is totally different.
Okay, so growing up, I think most people experience some sort of insecurities or some kind of problem, and even as someone who is seen as a majority or has a supremacy in the United States, I've experienced my own sort of racism. It may not be as extreme as the project that we're doing or others, but the United States is a melting pot, so it's a mix of all sorts of people, even if there's majorities or minorities. And there definitely is a difference, but Hispanics experience racism, so do Native Americans. I mean, that's obvious, and I think so, but I hope that it can be seen from all different ethnic backgrounds, that we can hopefully move forward past that, and that it can be more of an acceptable place to live, and that racism isn't pointed to just white people or just African Americans, that it can be something that we can move forward and learn about, which is I think what we're trying to do with this project, that we can learn about it and hopefully not have it so severe as like it is in the news, how it's just so bad. And I hope that it can get better. It's not going to be perfect, but I hope it gets better as we educate those around us on campus.
Well, like I said before, we've gotten some pushback from staff and other people, but it's understandable why they're so concerned, and we're addressing their issues now. And besides that, my mom is half black, and I talked to her about the project, and she's really passionate about it. She understands that this is a really important issue that needs to be covered, and some people will get scared, but we still need to address their concerns, make sure everything's okay, and we're going to educate a lot of people.
Some of the problems and obstacles that we have faced with this project have mainly come from the staff for very good reasons. They had some questions and concerns regarding the project, and just to ensure that it went smoothly. And with a lot of time and work that we put into it, slowly we're starting to overcome all those obstacles and get a really concrete plan to ensure that the project brings more positive than negative effects to the campus.
Okay. They're so powerful and hideous. And then if you think of like, okay, crucifixion, other than Jesus Christ, then it's like nobody really talks about it. You know what I mean? But the whole thing is that they're both the same. It's unbelievable how they're so much alike, and how, especially from like a Christian school, I think Cal Lu should know about this. They should see it for themselves and be like, wow, this not only happened, but this is a part of history, and we should educate ourselves about it. Because that's the only way we could truly understand the cross of Christ, is if we understand the lynchings of all these people. And it's documented, and we've done like research, and we've collaborated research and things like that. So there's documented over 40,000 African Americans, of men, women, and children that were lynched, that were victimized in this form, where anyone in these towns, in these southern towns, they call it the Bible Belt, because pretty much everybody was Christian. I mean, there's no specific denomination or anything like that. It was just Christian churches who believed that. I mean, there was even slavery. I mean, obviously going, prior to that, and there were many Christian, people that did slavery. I mean, George Washington. I mean, Abraham Lincoln. I mean, they all had slaves. And then the cool thing is that, Abraham Lincoln was a white man that was like, okay, we do need to put a stop to this. This isn't right. And so, that's a little history lesson. But yeah, I just felt really passionate about this because a lot of people just look at one instance and they're like, oh, a shooting happened in Ferguson, or oh, a shooting happened in Florida of some innocent white man who shot this thug of a 13-year-old kid with a hood on, or there's so many other examples, and the sad thing is that throughout history it's been okay to kill anyone other than white people. And so, unfortunately, black people have the large majority of the grunt. And especially coming from police officers who we expect that are sworn to protect and to serve, going back to Ferguson, Missouri. And so, just going to the very simple fact that, okay, there was someone who might have who basically stole something from a store. But does that mean that you should kill them? Does that warrant killing? It kind of goes back to, the terror era, where so many people, 18th, 19th, 20th century, were killed for the smallest reasons, for the smallest things. Some were accusations that weren't even true, obviously. Okay, some were accusations about someone else's relative. So, for example, if someone's brother was maybe alleged stolen something, then they would actually get killed for it. There was a woman who her son was accused of something and she was punished, and I'm just like, that's kind of weird. But yeah, I feel that I do go to a predominantly white university, and it's kind of a I guess you could say calling of mine to bring equality, to bring justice to light. And there is no justice if things are pushed under the table, if things aren't talked about, if things aren't properly, officially addressed. And I think that's a big part.
I have definitely considered what other students, staff, faculty, and anybody who walks by is going to consider. This is a very... sensitive is the right word because it's not brought to light very much, so we're getting a lot of pushback and a lot of differing opinions, and we need to keep into consideration that other people will have strong opinions, and we need to make sure that they will understand. So we're getting as much help as we can, so the students and the faculty and the staff and anybody who walks by will understand that this is an important issue that we are covering.
Providing educational support, providing insight to navigating the politics of doing such a campus project and being a resource to bounce ideas off of, and also to be present as much as possible when the project goes live to respond to any questions that the students need assistance in responding to, and also to experience the impact of the project myself.
I grew up in Palmdale, and let me just tell you, being the minority anywhere, doesn't matter where you're from, just being anywhere, whether it's America, India, Europe, Asia, anywhere, you're gonna get picked on a lot. And that was the case for me. Palmdale has a majority of Hispanic and African American, so it was very hard growing up because I was always picked on, that one white boy down the street, and having the racial stereotype of white people always rich, to get whatever they want, they can do whatever they want, they're all racists, and I always hated that stereotype being connected to me, especially growing up. There was times when I was afraid of walking home from school just because of my skin, and I don't think anybody in this country or anywhere should be treated like that. And that's why I'm mostly here doing this, is because inequality is not just a two-way street. It happens to anybody. And it honestly needs to stop for people to move forward.
Yeah.
Do I live in a university. And it's mostly white. When I moved from Atlanta, I grew up on the East Coast. When I moved from Atlanta, where it's about 50-50, black and white. And then now we have a whole Asian section, a whole Latino section. But when I moved to California, I was like, where are the black people? Where are they? It was just such a different environment than living in Atlanta, or even Philadelphia or Baltimore, New Haven, Connecticut, places that I've been. So that doesn't answer the question, is there white supremacy? But it does answer the question, is there white privilege? Yes, absolutely. In my field of biblical studies, I could probably count on two hands the scholars, the broadly known scholars of color. Wow, that's shocking. Because when you go to a religion national meeting, it's 80 to 100,000 scholars and participants. And that in my small field of biblical studies, I still walk into the rooms and it's all old white guys. Maybe, a redhead here and, a female there, but that's it. So we have a lot of work to do. We have a lot of work to do in higher education. That doesn't answer the question about white supremacy. Is there white supremacy? Yes. You just look online. The groups are there. The white supremacist groups are there, and they are targeting people, and they are making communities uncomfortable, and they are making many people, giving many people a really difficult time in their lives. Does that mean that the whole United States is a white supremacist system? I don't think that's the right terminology for it. Is it a racist system? Yes. We have structures of racism in our country. You just have to look at public schools and divisions. You just have to look at the jails and who we put away for what crime. So yeah, I think a lot of that institutionalized division of the races into class segments or location segments, urban communities where there aren't any gardens or fresh food places, but just liquor stores, that usually affects the poor and the people of color more than it does others. Yeah. I want to teach better. I want to teach better, and it feels like when things get so busy and the administrative part of my job is overwhelming, and it just feels like, April 15th and everybody's filing for taxes, and it's just that kind of crazy, or Christmas Eve and everybody's trying to, it's that kind of craziness. I can get lazy in my teaching and say, all right, I'm just going to follow the book and I'm going to walk in and we're going to think about these things that I've taught before. When really what we need is, what I need to be doing is knocking down the walls of the classroom and saying, what are you worried about today? And how does that relate to, whatever we're doing, pluralism, Christianity, Islam, whatever we're doing? How do I connect our lives of students, faculty, and staff to the material that we're learning and teaching? So that's the biggest piece of reflection for me. And at the heart of it is, I think race is a real issue, and how we do that. I mean, so many times in my head I've been planning new courses, right? Just out of walking with All for Justice students and listening to faculty and staff and other students process this installation, I've been thinking, all right, can I, how would I create a race and religion class? How would I create a this or that? Because maybe that's more important than some of the other things I've been trying to teach. The installation came down after 2 days, but the project will not be over for a long time. I know students will be processing this, and I know a lot of faculty are processing this. I think we've done pretty good work with staff, but there are some faculty who have been really hurt and who didn't know about the installation before it happened, so they didn't, they just came upon it and were very shocked. Personally, I have a lot of repair work to do, and our department has some repair work to do, and some of that work is good work that we should be doing anyway, which is to say, how does the religion department in the humanities division think about teaching undergraduates and engaging experiential learning, and what is the role of that experiential learning for a smaller classroom, but also for the wider campus, and how do we negotiate the slippage and the space between what students are learning in a classroom and and what happens when you bring that learning to the larger campus. In sociology, there's a very different approach. It's less the approach of we're going to create an art project and more the approach of we're doing research on vulnerable subjects, and so they do an IRB report and it's reviewed before the experiment ever goes forward. But in humanities, in religion, we don't conduct experiments. We often create art or theology or music or something that we hope will engage people in other ways. So one of those ongoing topics now will be the discussion between, how do we actually do our jobs from different fields and different areas of expertise. Another of my takeaways, I think, is in the religion department, we're 8 faculty, and we've been talking a lot about how teaching is different now than it was when we were trained in graduate school. One of the things that's different is that you can't be anonymous in the classroom. You can't walk in and teach your subject and leave. How do I say this? We are really a learning community, and we are really part of one another's lives. And if we're not willing to extend the classroom into the boundaries of our lives, where we are mentors or club advisors or working out at the gym where our students work out, or planting the garden where our students are also planting the garden, if we're not willing to be that kind of learning community, if we want to shut learning into sort of a square box, the 4 walls of the classroom, and then outside there's no learning, we're going to miss much of what we have dedicated our lives to. So for me, the preciousness of being able to walk with students through this learning, walk with our whole community, the department, people on different aspects, people on different sides even of, because the installation did create sides in some ways. If we're not willing to go through that storm together, then my teaching's not worth much. some of the reactions to the All for Justice installation and Campus Awareness Project were, who did this? Who's responsible? I want to thank them, or I want to get them, whatever that means. I want to know who's responsible. The most powerful conversations are those where people have been willing to, when I say, count me responsible. If you need to hold somebody responsible, hold me responsible. And now let me listen and hear what you've experienced. And if you'd like, I'd be happy to share with you some of the project or some of the students' learning or whatever I can. So and the other question, so I'll do it in terms of two questions. The other question is, why didn't you stop it? Your chair, why didn't you just say no? I wasn't able to say no to student learning, and I wasn't able to say no to the students of color and the faculty of color who were very concerned to condemn lynching on campus in an impactful way. So that was the only obstacle and it actually came well before the installation was produced on campus, but it was the obstacle in my head as to who am I, what is my role going to be, and how do I come to this project? So that obstacle for me was, am I the one who has the responsibility to say yes or no, and what does that mean to give permission for learning? It's not my campus, it's the students' campus. Actually, it's all of our campus. So for me, that was the hitch, the bump, the wall. And when I was able to reconcile myself to that wall, I'm just moving forward. So you could say that some of the obstacles are the people who, no, I wouldn't even say that. That was the only obstacle for me. There's a lot of hard work ahead. There's a lot of reconciliation that needs to happen. And by a lot, I don't mean volume. I mean with particular folks, specific individuals, and maybe some departments, and a deep kind of reconciliation. And how do we work together now that all of this is out in the open? And what does it mean that we're all members of the Center for Equality and Justice? How do we do that together?
That's powerful.
I think for me, both personally and professionally, and since I wasn't involved on the ground with creating the project or overseeing it in the classroom or out of that class, my personal and professional goal is really to ask myself the question, am I willing to be vulnerable with the people I work with on campus? And am I willing to listen and to be present and to also contribute what I think and to put my voice in the mix and see what learning comes out of that? And it's very scary. Sort of like the installation was scary for the student group and for a lot of the faculty who are mentoring the student group and staff as well. So what's scary is, like any kind of learning or teaching or any moment in life, if you are really going to put yourself into it, and that's the question, if you're really going to put yourself in it. If you're going to put yourself in it, are you willing to give everything? Are you willing to be there? And if you are, you don't know what the outcome is. If you're not, you control what you allow of yourself to be in the world and what you allow of yourself to be with other people. So my personal and professional goal, I guess, was to say, all right, I'm going to make myself available and walk with people regardless of what happens. And hopefully, believing in our students and believing in our staff and our faculty and hoping for a deeper community of learning, then yes, I would want to risk whatever's being risked for that.
And kind of elaborating on that, this isn't one of the original questions, but looking back on this process, that there's so many, I guess you consider like social sins that take place, like in our country, in our world that we live in. What type of, encouragement does that say to other students, or would you want to like say to, other students that are like, hey, I want to actually do work. I want to actually do something to make a difference in that regard.
Well, first, I hope that all of our students find a project in their 2 or 4 years with us that is a project where they want to invest themselves to make a difference in the world. I think that's what our education is about on this campus. And that's a Lutheran commitment, but we also have the Lutheran culture of everybody's nice to everybody. So those two things don't always go together. Say what you asked me again. What
So
do I hope for?
Yeah, as far as like future students, like
For future students.
Yeah, or students that are currently in school, like maybe they're a sophomore or what have you, and they're like, like this project, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
And then so, just showing this process, looking back at it, like what do you feel that is like, oh, like,
which is a faculty center that aims specifically at how do we bring our learning about the world to the campus and to the community in order to make a difference in the world for justice. So the Center for Equality and Justice is the place where many faculty and the student organizers are working to do that. I do think that the All for Justice installation to condemn lynching and bring campus awareness offers a lot that we can learn from on how to do this. I think the project was bigger than the 3 months that the students had to prepare for, and I think it would, if we were to do it again, or something like it, we would need a good 6 months of preparation, coordinated teaching. How many faculty can we bring on so that they can bring a piece of this teaching into their class, so that when their students encounter something like this on campus, they have some framework. There's still a shock. There's still kind of that visceral encounter, but there's also now an intellectual basis as well as some pre-processing. And then the benefit is hopefully working with our Dean of Students to do a lot of that co-curricular learning, which is create discussion groups in the dorms, create discussion groups for commuter students to attend a bag lunch or something like that. So in some ways, we can use this piece, this installation, as a template for broader pieces, and begin to create the kind of networks of learning around co-curricular student programming, dorm programming, counseling services programming with faculty academic programming and syllabi. So I think that's very positive. One of the things we've really tried to do in the religion department is to connect courses, different courses, to a particular experiential learning. So I work with undocumented immigrants in the Latino community, and particularly around issues of immigration and liberation theology. So a number of us had a course, had different courses where we said we're going to all take our students, those who want to come and do their project, to the strawberry fields of Oxnard and pick strawberries. Now, we didn't have a bigger campus installation or experience where the students could encounter, anybody could encounter the justice issues around being undocumented, housing issues, chemical issues of working with the strawberries. But we did cross a number of classes so that we had a poli-sci class, a theology class, a religion class, and I think an environmental ethics class where they could begin to talk across disciplines to really investigate that. Sam Thomas's environmental ethics class created a, and this is probably a pretty far-reaching project, created a mission statement, an environmental mission statement for the campus. So they did all the research, they put it all together, and then they presented it to facilities and the gardeners and some other people on campus to actually implement some of those things that they were thinking about and could bring it. And to his credit, our VP of facilities and grounds has implemented those things. So that would be a case where there has been some movement on campus out of the learning of one classroom in kind of a parallel way to the All for Justice installation. But I think the more we can do, the better. And my hope is that when students do have something, that they're willing to commit a longer-term project to it. Can we begin it in the classroom and then take it to a directed research, and then can we implement, and would you like to recruit others to be a part of that? Can we do a summer undergraduate research fellowship, get some funding for it, and then how do we bring it back to the campus? So that way, research isn't just a line on your CV. Research is actually making a difference in the community and for the campus.